Here's my video for the light reaction and Calvin cycle diagrams. So here, starting off with light reactions, here's the whole diagram. And you have your photosystem 2, your photosystem 1, and then here, right here, these lines here are going to be your thylakoid membrane. And you start off with your light is going to strike, the chlorophyll and excite your electrons and move them into the reaction center, and then that's gonna move your electrons in their excited state throughout the thylakoid membrane. So they're gonna move through the membrane, and they're gonna keep going through the membrane all the way down to photosystem 1, and then they're gonna move through ferredoxin into this NAD plus reductase system or reaction, and then with that electron and proton, it's gonna allow it to create NADPH. So that's kind of what's going on, part of what's going on in this reaction. So after that's made, we go back, and so light reactions taking place here in the thylakoid membrane, and if you go back over here to photosystem 1, here is where the water molecule is actually being split. So you have it's split here, you have the O2, and then you have the hydrogen molecule is actually going to be up here in the thylakoid space. So the stroma is on this side of the thylakoid membrane, and then the thylakoid space is on the top part up here of the thylakoid membrane. So the reason it splits is so that you have the hydrogen molecules over here on this thylakoid space side of the membrane, so that whenever you're doing your reactions, you are able to send the protons through the membrane through the electron transport chain. The last thing about the light reaction that happens is over here in the ATP synthase, on the thylakoid space up here, these hydrogen molecules are getting very concentrated, and then ATP synthase transports them down and uses them to make ATP with ADP. And that's important because the two products from this reaction, NADPH and ATP, are the two main products used in the Calvin cycle, which we'll talk about next. So here you have the Calvin cycle, which takes place in the stroma. And you start off here with the CO2 Ribisco enzyme, and then you're going to go to the 3-phosphoglycerate, and then you have the ATP-ADP reaction there. And then you have the bisophosphogycerate, and you have the NADPH, NADP plus reaction there. And then you have the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate next. And then here, in the middle of the cycle, you have the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And then you have the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And then it goes to the ribulose 5-phosphate. And then you have the ATP-ADP again up here. And then you have the ribulose biphosphate. And then, so what's actually being produced in the Calvin cycle is sugars, fatty acids, amino acids. So that's what's being produced here. It's, again, it's run by ATP and NADPH. So those two things that are made in the light reaction is actually what's running the Calvin cycle, and this is taking place in the stroma.